Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm breaking down one of the most painful father-son stories in music history, how Joe Jackson built Michael's career, and according to Michael himself, broke something inside him along the way. And tomorrow, we're staying in the Jackson family because there's a second story you won't want to miss. Let's get into it. June 24th, 2009, Staples Center, Los Angeles. Michael Jackson steps under the lights for a rehearsal that no one in the room knows will be his last. Hours later, he's gone. For years, the world has pieced together his final days from court testimony, phone records, and rehearsal footage that was never meant to be seen by the public. Some of it became the documentary This Is It. Some of it came out only in a courtroom, under oath, during the trial of the man convicted in his death. This is what actually happened, backed by the coroner's report, sworn testimony, and the official trial record. Stay with us, because the truth is stranger and sadder than most of the rumors. By late 2008, Michael Jackson was in serious financial trouble, reportedly facing hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. That's the backdrop for This Is It, a concert residency announced in March 2009 at a press conference at London's O2 Arena, where Jackson told the crowd, "This is the final curtain call." What started as 10 shows exploded into 50 after ticket demand crashed pre-sale websites, with more than 1 million fans trying to buy in the first minutes. It was framed as the biggest comeback in music history. It was also, for a 50-year-old man who hadn't toured in over a decade, an enormous physical undertaking. Rehearsals ran 6 days a week starting in April 2009, moving between 3 different venues in the Los Angeles area: center staging in Burbank, the Forum in Inglewood, and finally the Staples Center itself for the final week of production rehearsals. This wasn't casual practice. Choreographer Kenny Ortega and the production team were building an elaborate stage show with 3D film segments, custom-engineered effects, and a full live band, all while trying to get Jackson's body ready for a 50-night run. And his body was struggling. On June 13th, Jackson skipped rehearsal entirely on the advice of his physician, Conrad Murray. On June 19th, he became ill during a costume fitting and had to be sent home. Ortega reportedly gave him a foot massage and fed him wrapped in a blanket near a heater before he left for the day. That incident was serious enough that it triggered a meeting at Jackson's home the next day to address concerns about his condition. Despite the setbacks, the last week tells a different story, of an artist still chasing perfection. On June 23rd, Jackson rehearsed for roughly 90 minutes, running through songs including I Want You Back, Black or White, and The Way You Make Me Feel, fine-tuning transitions and cutting sections that didn't work. He reportedly asked the sound team to adjust his in-ear monitors because he wasn't used to performing without traditional stage monitors after decades of touring. Then came June 24th, the last day of his life that involved real rehearsal. He arrived at Staples Center in the late afternoon, but didn't start performing until around 9 p.m. after a production meeting about a potential CBS television special built around his 1997 short film, Ghosts. That night, he ran through several songs including Dangerous, Thriller, and finally Earth Song, the last song Michael Jackson ever performed live. The rehearsal reportedly continued into the early hours of June 25th before wrapping. Colleagues who worked with him that week described him as focused and collaborative, still meticulously refining choreography, but also visibly fatigued. This tension, brilliance alongside physical decline, runs through nearly every account of his final weeks. After leaving Staples Center, Jackson returned home. What followed, according to sworn testimony at the 2011 trial of Dr. Conrad Murray, was a desperate hours-long struggle with insomnia. Murray testified and told police in the days after Jackson's death that he gave Jackson a sequence of sedatives through the night of June 24th into the morning of June 25th, Valium, then intravenous doses of lorazepam and midazolam. None of it worked. Jackson, exhausted from rehearsal and reportedly worried about being able to perform if he couldn't sleep, kept asking for the drug he called his milk, propofol, a powerful surgical anesthetic normally used only in hospitals under close monitoring. At around 10:40 a.m. on June 25th, Murray administered a dose of propofol, by his own account 25 milligrams. Jackson finally fell asleep. Murray later told investigators he stepped away from the bedside briefly. When he returned, Jackson was not breathing. What happened in the minutes after that became the most fiercely contested part of the entire case. According to testimony from household staff and security, Murray did not immediately call 911. Instead, witnesses said he first contacted Jackson's personal assistant, bodyguard Alberto Alvarez, who was called into the bedroom, testified that Murray instructed him to gather medical vials and an IV bag before help was summoned. Testimony that became central to the prosecution's argument that critical time was lost. Murray attempted CPR, but performed it on the soft mattress of Jackson's bed rather than on a firm surface, a widely known basic error, since compressions on a soft bed are far less effective at circulating blood. Prosecutors also emphasized that when paramedics and later hospital staff arrived, they were reportedly not told that Jackson had been given propofol, which affected how the emergency was initially treated. Jackson was rushed to UCLA Medical Center, where a team worked on him for roughly an hour. He was pronounced dead at 2:26 p.m. on June 25, 2009. He was 50 years old. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office conducted a full autopsy the next day. Their finding, later confirmed through toxicology, Jackson's heart was structurally healthy for his age, with no signs of disease. There was no natural or traumatic cause of death. The official cause was acute propofol intoxication, with contributing effects from the sedatives Murray had also administered that night. The coroner's office ultimately classified the manner of death as homicide, a legal classification, not necessarily an accusation of intentional killing, but a determination that another person's actions directly caused the death. That classification is what set the criminal case in motion. Dr. Conrad Murray was charged with involuntary manslaughter in February 2010 and pleaded not guilty. His trial began September 27, 2011, in Los Angeles Superior Court and lasted 6 weeks, with 49 witnesses called. Prosecutors David Walgren and Deborah Brazil argued that Murray committed gross negligence, using a hospital-grade anesthetic in a home bedroom with no proper monitoring equipment, no crash cart, and no backup. Expert witnesses cited more than a dozen violations of basic medical standards. The defense countered that Jackson himself may have swallowed additional pills or self-administered a final dose of propofol while Murray was out of the room, a theory prosecution experts strongly disputed. On November 7, 2011, after roughly 9 to 10 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a unanimous guilty verdict. Murray was sentenced on November 29th to 4 years in prison, the maximum allowed for the charge. He was released in October 2013 after serving just under 2 years, due to overcrowding and credit for good behavior. His medical licenses in California, Texas, and Nevada were suspended or revoked. He later relocated abroad. One of the most talked about pieces of evidence at trial was an audio recording, reportedly made by Murray himself, of a heavily medicated Jackson speaking about his hopes for the future, including plans for children's charity work and a medical facility for kids. His voice on the tape is slow and slurred. Prosecutors argued the recording showed Murray understood exactly how impaired Jackson was in the weeks before his death and continued the propofol regimen anyway. It remains one of the last known recordings of Jackson's voice outside of rehearsal footage. Not everyone accepted the official narrative as the full story. In the years following the verdict, Jackson's sister, LaToya, publicly argued that Murray was not solely responsible, suggesting a broader circle of people around Jackson bore blame for the environment that led to his death. In a 2017 interview, Jackson's daughter, Paris, said she believed her father's death involved more than one person's negligence, describing Murray as one part of a larger failure by those managing his career. It's important to be clear about what these are. Personal, on-the-record statements from family members expressing their own beliefs, not findings supported by the criminal investigation, the coroner's report, or the trial verdict, all of which centered on Murray's individual conduct. Other persistent rumors from this period, claims that Jackson faked his death, for instance, have no factual support and were dismissed by authorities. Two other long-running pieces of public speculation about Jackson are worth separating from fact. Rumors that he intentionally lightened his skin were addressed by his medical history, which documented vitiligo, a condition causing loss of skin pigmentation. And the 2005 criminal trial over child molestation allegations against him ended in a full acquittal on all counts. Much of what the public knows about Jackson's final physical and creative state comes from the 100-plus hours of rehearsal footage AEG Live recorded, originally intended only for internal production use, and Jackson's personal archive. Some of it was released as the 2009 documentary Michael Jackson's This Is It. The footage shows a performer still capable of precise, demanding choreography. The anti-gravity lean in Smooth Criminal, full-scale numbers like Thriller and Beat It, reworked with updated staging and 3D film elements. It also shows moments of visible exhaustion, Jackson conserving his voice during some numbers, occasionally miming choreography rather than dancing full out, and colleagues later describing periods of shivering and fatigue between takes. Both things were true at once, an artist still capable of extraordinary work, operating under serious physical strain. Fittingly, the final song Jackson ever rehearsed, on the night of June 24th, was Earth Song, his environmental anthem, staged with a short film of a girl walking through a devastated rainforest and a towering mechanical set piece. Witnesses in the room that night described him performing it with real energy, hours before he went home for the last time. Strip away the speculation and what's left is still a heavy story. A global superstar under enormous financial and physical pressure, a doctor who crossed a line no hospital would allow, and a system of oversight that simply wasn't there when it mattered. Michael Jackson's rehearsal footage remains some of the last documented evidence of an artist at work until nearly the final hours of his life. The trial record remains the most complete official account of how those hours ended. If you found this breakdown of the record helpful, subscribe for more fact-checked deep dives into the stories behind the headlines.